All right. Hello, everyone. As everyone starts to trickle in, thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books and Mystery Writers of America, proud to host the 75th Edgar Awards conversation with this year's Grandmasters, Jeffery Deaver and Charlaine Harris. We are also very proud to welcome this year's Ellery Queen Award winner and Knopf publisher, Reagan Arthur. Former Raven recipient and mystery reviewer and Missouri native, Oline Cogdill will moderate the event. For those of you that don't know, Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore. We would like to thank all of our supporters, the supporters of Mystery Writers of America, Jeffery Deaver, Charlaine Harris, Reagan Arthur, and Oline Cogdill, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstore. Left Bank Books offers curbside pickup and delivery to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world even. We are happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. We hope that you enjoy this event, and we hope that you support Left Bank Books by purchasing signed copies. Yes, I said signed copies of Charlaine Harris or Jeffery Deaver's book for you or for all of your friends at left-bank.com. Purchasing a copy of the book from Left Bank Books allows us to keep our bookstore and staff operating, and it allows us to keep our fantastic event series going. So thank you for your support. I am Shane Mullen. I'm the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. I wore my fancy blazer tonight for this incredible awards presentation. I help produce our hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis. We will be taking questions from you, the audience, at the end of the event. So you can type up your questions as a comment, and you can do that at any point in time throughout the event. And you can follow Left Bank Books or Mystery Writers of America on Facebook to be notified about all of our fantastic virtual events. For those of you that don't know or maybe aren't as familiar, the Mystery Writers of America is the premier organization for mystery writers, professionals allied to the crime writing field, aspiring crime writers, and those who are devoted to the genre. MWA is dedicated to promoting higher regard for crime writing and recognition and respect for those who write within the genre. They provide scholarships for writers, sponsor MWA literacy programs, sponsor symposia and conferences, present the fantastic Edgar Awards, and conduct other activities to further a better appreciation and higher regard for crime writing. The Edgar Awards, which will happen on Thursday, April 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. The registration for that event for the award show is now open, and the link is pinned to the top of the Twitter profile at Edgar Awards. So you can get registered and get all fancy and go to the ceremony yourself. About tonight's speakers. Reagan Arthur is currently the publisher at Alfred A. Knopf after a lengthy career in editorial and editorial development. Amongst the authors she has worked with over the years include names like Michael Connelly and Kate Atkinson, and also the enormously successful Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. Oline Cogdill reviews mystery fiction for Publishers Weekly, Shelf Awareness, Associated Press, Mystery Scene Magazine, and the Sun Sentinel and Fort Lauderdale Tribune Publishing Wire. Tribune Publishing Wire. She also blogs regularly at mysteryscenemag.com. She has received the 2013 Raven Award from the Mystery Writers of America, the 1999 Ellen Nair Award by the American Crime Writers League, and the 1997 Sun Sentinel's Pettyjohn Award. Oline is a judge for the 2019, 2020, and 2021 Los Angeles Times Book Prize in the Mystery Thriller category. Jeffery Deaver has published more than 40 novels since the early 1990s, including 2 series besides the Lincoln Rhyme novels, numerous standalone and short story collections. And Charlaine Harris has published 13 novels in the Southern Vampire series adapted into the popular HBO series True Blood, which proved so popular that at one point her novels took half of the top 10 slots on the New York Times bestseller list. Her other series include the Aurora Tiergarten novels, the Lily Bard Shakespeare books, and the Midnight Texas trilogy adapted for television, and numerous others, as well as several standalones. And now, I am very honored and happy to be able to welcome our guests for the evening, Reagan Arthur, Jeffery Deaver, Charlaine Harris and Oline Cogdill for Left Bank Books and the Mystery Writers of America. If you would please help me at home, give them a incredibly warm round of applause. Hello, everyone. Congratulations.
I'm listening.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Shane, shall I go ahead and start?
Yep.
I also am just delighted to be here to talk with Jeffery, Charlaine, and Reagan. And the fact that I'm a Missouri native and that this is a Missouri bookstore is even sweeter. So let's get started. This has been one of the strangest years, obviously, for everything. And I think certainly for the publishing industry and for authors. Each of you has a long, rich career in publishing. And I'd like your opinions on what you think is the current state of publishing and its future. And Charlaine, I'm going to start with you.
Obviously, publishing has changed just incredibly in the past 10 years, and that's accelerated in the past 5 years. And I'm sure that books will change in format and delivery yet again in ways we can't really imagine now. As long as people keep reading, I'm not really terribly concerned about how they get the books, as long as they don't steal them from a free website. So I feel like people probably read more during the pandemic than at any other time in the past 5 years. And I believe that they did a lot of rereading, because every time I would say on one of the social platforms that I was rereading someone, because it's kind of comforting when you're afraid to read something you know is going to give you a good feeling or excite your admiration. And other people would respond with, oh, yes, I'm rereading this, I'm rereading that. So I hope that they bought new books too, but I know a lot of people were reading.
Jeffrey, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think back to when I started in this business many years ago, the late 1980s. Of course, the geography of the publishing world was so different then. When you submitted a book, it went to 16, 17 discrete publishers. And if you were lucky, a few of them bid on it. And then you would go through the traditional editorial process, which involved a lot of paper, believe it or not. I remember when I teach my courses in writing, I tell my students, you know, cut and paste is not metaphoric. It was not originally, at any rate. One would do that. And I remember submitting manuscripts that had that were, each page was maybe 1/8 of an inch high or thick, because I would type in corrections and tape it over the original page. Well, all that mechanical, those mechanical aspects of publishing are now different. It's, I think, much more streamlined, more efficient. But what I keep coming back to, and this again is what I belabor my students with, is that if you write a quality book, it's no different than it was 40 years ago or 100 years ago or 200 years ago. With novels, you can't go much further than that, but because we haven't had novels all that long. But if you create a quality product, there will be a market for it. Now, I'm kind of adjusting my writing style to try to pick up some of the, the streaming audience. People are kind of inured to the, the fast-paced, television-oriented type of entertainment. And I've changed my writing style a little bit to pick up those people and show them that books too can be as exciting as Breaking Bad or the many shows we've seen on TV. But I think essentially the thirst for good stories has never wavered.
And Reagan, coming from the publishing end, what are your thoughts on this current state of publishing and its future?
Well, I have to echo Charlaine and Jeffrey in terms of the good news so far, that people are still reading. Charlaine, I just, before this, my last event was in, it was in DC about a half an hour ago, and it was an author talking about how last year, for a long time, all she could do was reread all the Little House books. And then she was finally able to pull herself out of that, which I have to say, I highly recommend. When my kids were little, I read them to my kids, and I was just astonished at how well written they were. And I often hold up the boy version. I'm blanking on it for some reason, but anyway, Almanzo's story as an incredible lesson in process. Like when she describes how they did things like cut ice or scythe wheat, she describes it so clearly. But I'm getting off track. This is not a process. Anyway, I think that what we saw last year in terms of the business was that people were indeed hungry for stories, hungry for books, and in particular, many seized on it as an opportunity to read books they hadn't read. So the business as a whole saw a huge lift in backlist titles. And I find that comforting in a lot of ways, and proof again that everybody wants a good story. But I also think that we don't know how they're going to be getting them, how they'll be delivered, in what format. But the fact is that I think the real crisis of the business came when we thought ebooks might take over, and perhaps the pricing models would sort of upend everything, and that hasn't happened, which I think is the largest sign of health we can point to.
Let's get the pandemic question out of the way now. Has the this is for Jeffrey and Charlaine, and I have another similar question for you, Reagan. Has the pandemic affected what you write or how you write? And Jeffrey, why don't we start with you this time? Give Charlaine a break.
Surely. I'll kind of reverse the questions in a way, but sort of the how I write or what I've been up to for the last year and a half. I had normally been on book tours, so I divide my time. I'm a full-time writer, have been for about 40 years now, full-time novelist. I divide that maybe 60% creating product, 40% promoting the product. A year before, 2019, I flew almost 200,000 miles doing some research, but mostly promoting my books around the world, which I love doing. I think it's very important to meet your readers and get their feedback. Well, that, of course, was cut out entirely last year. But nonetheless, I had the 10 hours a day I would normally devote to the whole process of crafting and marketing a book, to just writing the books. So I have to say I was extremely productive. I've written 2 novels, 4 short stories for print, and 3 Audible.com original short stories, all of which are being released this year. And I can't say that's not kudos to me. That's simply, you can only watch so many reruns of Curb Your Enthusiasm before you go crazy and want to do something. As far as the subject matter, the pandemic does not exist in my books. I don't date my books particularly, but they're contemporary. But I do not touch on the topic at all. I think, rightly or wrongly, I believe people want escape. They want to get back to the normal world of crime fiction, and so I do not. That does not enter my universe.
Charlaine, how about you regarding the pandemic?
I got COVID brain. I really felt like I was thinking through a fog. It was like trying to drag words out of a pit. I had a terrible time with it. I envy Jeffrey. Trying not to dislike him intensely. No. I applaud you, and I know other writers who reacted that way. I know more than myself were just almost paralyzed. I had a book I had to finish, and I did finish it, but it was excruciating, and having to read it over with all the changes and the edits and the copy edits and so on was just very difficult for me. Finally, it feels like I'm waking up now, and I've got another book that's due in July, and I'm really working hard on it, and it's finally flowing. But you may know that now I'm writing about a past America that is fractured in different ways, and it's Spanish flu time.
Oh no.
Oh
And I thought, oh man, should I really do this? But it's what I planned on doing. So I'm just going on with it right now. And if it really doesn't work, I can just take it out somehow.
And Reagan, as a publisher, has the pandemic affected the types of crime fiction you are publishing or plan to publish?
Well, the short, boring answer is no. It hasn't. I think what we've seen is more of an impact, weirdly, not impact, but sort of concurrent reality that we had more than one writer who was already working on a novel that involved the pandemic. And Shep was about to publish one that he had finished last February. Emily St. John Mandel, of course, had already written Station 11. That was one of the backlist beneficiaries last year. And we have a couple others who, Lawrence Wright, end of October came out last year, which is a thriller about a pandemic. But in terms of books we're seeing or publishing related to the pandemic, thrillers in particular, to this pandemic, no.
Are you looking for a different type of crime fiction than you were, say, last year?
No.
Okay. And speaking as a reader and a critic, I don't want to read about the pandemic. I really just want to read great stories that take us out of the world. So, thank you all. I'd like to go back to the beginning of your careers. And Charlaine, 2021 marks your 40th year as a published writer. Congratulations.
You know, it's great. I never thought I would get here.
And as I understand it, you started writing as a very young age. And at one point you wanted to be a playwright. Tell me about your journey to being a novelist. And at what point in your career did you think, yeah, this novel thing is going to work out?
Well, I wrote plays in college because they were quicker. They were one-act plays. They were quicker and easier to write, and I knew exactly what I wanted to say. And when you have one act, you got to get right to it. But I always knew I wanted to be a novelist. I felt like that was my secret identity. Very secret for a long time. And then finally, when I married my second husband, he gave me the opportunity to stay home and write full time, which was the best wedding present ever, really. And I wrote a book the next year and it got published. So I was incredibly lucky. I worked really hard and I had something to say. And I'm very fortunate in many ways that it found a publisher and it did fairly well. And, that was just the start of what feels like a very long career.
It is a long. 40 years is great. It is. Now, Jeffrey, as I understand it, you wrote your first book at age 11.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it got published.
And it never will be out of respect to my readers and my career.
You went to the University of Missouri, where you got your journalism degree, which was also my alma mater, where I got my journalism degree, in Mizzou. And you then went to law school.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your journey to becoming a novelist, and what was your influences?
I knew from a very early age that I wanted to write fiction full time for a living. I was a nerd growing up, and nowadays a nerd is, you've got $1 billion stock option in a social networking platform. I was a nerd back in the 1950s when you were real nerds. You were ignored by cheerleaders and pom-pom girls and so forth. But I had books. I had the public library in my town growing up, and in Glen Ellen, Illinois, and I knew they took me away from my daily cares. They took everyone away from the daily cares. They could be an exciting, emotional experience They could teach you things that you didn't know. So I knew I wanted to be a writer, but I also knew I wanted to, I did not want to be a starving artist in a garret. And when you think about it, Mozart was composing at a young age. Presumably Jackson Pollock was spattering paint on canvases at a young age, but authors generally are not prodigies. There are exceptions, of course, but it's kind of a tough road to hoe. You actually need to put some life in you, experience, before you can write. Yeah. And I had no qualms about doing that. I went to journalism school, as you did, of course, worked as a journalist for a while. Then I decided I wanted to not necessarily practice law, but become a legal correspondent. And I went to law school. I did practice for a while, but then I started writing books. And my theory was to do a book a year, be a journeyman writer. I started with trade paperbacks, then eventually moved to hardcover. And since I made that decision about 40 years ago, I've written at least a book a year. And that's been my goal. I paid my bills writing novels, making things up. Does it get any better than that?
No, it doesn't. What was your influence when you started?
Well, I'll say I'll bifurcate that. There are two influences. One was the commercial genre writers that I loved, and that included all genres. Ray Bradbury, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. I read, even at a young age, inappropriate for me, not age inappropriate only in the sense of intellect inappropriate. I read Saul Bellow novels when I was quite young. Loved Saul Bellow. What a great stylist he was. I read John D. MacDonald, Ian Fleming, Dashiell Hammett, of course, Raymond Chandler. So that was the literary influence. But then I also cite as influences my parents, who had a very curious rule for the 1950s that I could read any book I could get my hands on. That was fair game. But there were some movies I couldn't see, which was in reverse, because I could read Henry Miller if I chose to, but I could not see maybe a somewhat risque Peter Sellers film. But they instilled in me a love of books and the wonderful aspect of what books can do to your life.
Now, Reagan, you started as an editorial assistant at St. Martin's Press. You then moved to Little Brown as a senior editor, and now you're publisher of Knopf. What made you want to go into publishing?
I think it was just an idea, without really knowing much about publishing, except that it seemed to be where the things I love, books, began. It just seemed like an amazingly cool job to be able to read books and work with writers. And as I say, I didn't know much about it. So I came in with a very vague idea, but I think that's not totally true. Like, I had read A. Scott Berg's Max Perkins biography, and I had taken courses in college about writing and editing on the practical side. And I'm sure I had read some other books, like sort of about New York publishing, but sort of like how it actually worked, I didn't really know. But I was really lucky that my first boss was Tom Dunn, who had his own imprint at St. Martin's. And in fact, I was looking into past recipients of this award, and Ruth Cavan was the second recipient, and she worked for Tom when I got there. And if anybody had the good fortune to meet Ruth, she was absolutely indomitable, and she was probably in her 70s when I met her. I mean, she kept working till the very end, but she was a great champion of mystery writers, as was Tom. So I'm getting off track again. Anyway, what made me want to work in publishing was just a sense that it seemed like a very fun way to make a living. It turns
Jeffrey,
out I was right.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Reagan.
I'm just saying, it turns out that I was right.
Yes, you were. Jeffrey, you're known for creating believable, horrifying, terrifying suspense. I can every time I get into a taxi, I think about you. Scared to death.
I apologize.
No, it's a compliment. Your new novel, which comes out in a couple of weeks, is The Final Twist. And this is your third return to Coulter Shaw, who is described as a reward seeker. Mm-hmm. What was your inspiration to return to this character?
Well, I look back. I'll back up just a bit. I have always been a plot-driven author. Character generally took second place. I mean, we need believable characters, of course, but I have in each of my books, I've got a main plot, at least two subplots. They all interweave. The books take place over a very short period of time, 2 days, maybe 2 or 3 days, and there's always a surprise ending, and then a surprise ending after that. So every subplot has to have a twist. The spine of the book, if you will, the main plot has to have at least one or two twists. But I heard something, I think on NPR a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that was quite interesting. A neuroscientist said that the part of our brain that creates emotional attachment, good and bad, to real human beings, that's our family, friends, partners, and our enemies too, maybe the bad boss, is the same part of the brain that responds to fictional characters. And so that was an epiphany to me. And so I said, well, still need my plots. I need those twists, but I'm now going to imbue my characters with even more life. And so I decided to create a character that I hope my readers would fall totally in love with. And this is a fellow, good-looking, fit guy with a wry sense of humor. He's human and humane, and he travels around the country, giving me the chance to, of course, travel around the country to research. Well, I would have, aside from this. And so my intention now is to write Lincoln Rhyme, the character from The Bone Collector, and the Coulter Shaw series, one after another. I'm doing one of each this year, and then I'm going to settle down because I'm getting old and tired. And so it's going to be one every other year.
Charlaine, your novels create new worlds for us. Certainly, Suki Stackhouse, you gave us urban fantasy, Southern vampire, a genre we never knew we needed until it came along. And definitely we needed it. Now, your latest series is about Gunner Rose, and this is about a new, reimagined United States. How did this series came about? What was your inspiration for it? And your latest book is The Russian Cage.
The Russian Cage, yeah. I'm working on the 4th book now, which will focus on Lisbeth's little sister, Felicia. Unfortunately, I can't call it The Little Sister because somebody already used that title.
Who could that have been?
Yeah, I'm still thinking of something to call it. I wanted to write about a woman who killed a lot of people, and she couldn't always be in jail. So it had to be in America where she wouldn't be in jail or being pursued by law enforcement all the time. So that made the world come into being for me. And then I've always been fascinated with the last Russian royal family. So I dragged them in. And, if I had thought about Martians, I would have put a few of them into it. But I really had a lot of fun creating the world and her part of it and who she is. She's so different from anybody I've ever written before. I don't usually read reviews at all, except, I read PW and the other ones that my publisher sends me. But I read, yes, exactly. I read one review on Goodreads, and she said, she's such a cold character. And I thought, well, that wasn't my intention. I meant her to be unemotional. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's very controlled because her job is to always be vigilant and always have her gun ready. And you can't do that if you're looking from here or there and wondering about this or that. She's straight ahead. Kind of like the Joe Pike character in Robert Cray's books, who has the forward arrows tattooed on his arm.
Right,
She's
right.
the female version of that. She is straight ahead.
Only she doesn't wear sunglasses like Joe Pike does.
No, she doesn't. She's I really like her a lot, and it's a real challenge to write someone who keeps their emotions so under control.
Yeah.
And also, she is not known for her big sense of humor, which is really difficult for me.
Reagan, as a publisher and also as a reader, why does crime fiction appeal to you? And with all the entertainment choices we have, including during this pandemic, why do readers continue to return to mysteries and thrillers?
I guess I'll project and assume that it's for the same reasons that I do, which is in addition to, in the case of my two co-panelists, pointing the wrong way, my two co-panelists, and
This is Hollywood Squares.
It's harder than it looked. I think, the best mysteries are more than just something bad happened, someone's going to figure out what it was, and it'll be resolved. The best ones have character, they have meaning, and they have a sense of, place or pace or all of the above. But they have something you're reading towards rather than just descriptions that, I don't know, mood. They have all of that, but they also have something sort of urgent at their core. And I think the best ones also have often a morality, whether it's even if it's a fun, breezy mystery or something more serious. I think that the fact of somebody who did something bad and somebody who wants to catch that person or find out why is ultimately a moral question. And I don't think any of us approach it necessarily in that with that in mind as readers, but I have to believe that that's one of the satisfactions of it, is seeing justice done, and how that unfolds, and what it looks like. And there's infinite possibilities for that scenario. So for me, I love seeing new ways that writers find. Charlaine, as you were talking, I was remembering long ago I published a writer named Josh Bazell. I don't know if you remember meeting him. He wrote Beat the Reaper, which was about a hitman for the mob. It was like a complete, but he was a big fan of yours, and I think he met you at some event, and it was the unlikeliest pairing because it was. But that's what I mean. The mystery genre and the community itself, I think, just bring together such a disparate world of readers and characters and writers, and with such open arms, that I've always loved that about the genre and the community and about the books themselves. When you're reading the good ones, it's never the same story twice. It's never the same situation twice, and it's always satisfying. Mystery writers want to keep you turning the pages. That they're really good at it.
I so agree with everything you said. In your career, and I'll start with you, Reagan, what are you most proud of?
I don't know. It'd be hard to single something out, not related to me, but I've worked with so many writers who I love and who I think did so many great things. I guess relating to our event tonight and to the occasion of the Edgars, I will say that the first two books I bought, thanks to Tom Dunn, my first boss, were books that came into him and I read for him as assistants do, and he said, "Well, you like them so much, you can buy them." And they both went, "Oh, we lost Jeffrey. Uh-oh.
Oh no."
Well, he's going to have to find out the end of this fascinating story I'm telling, which is that. Anyway, so I was very lucky, first of all, that he let me buy these two books that came into him. One was Terence Farady's Dead Stick, and the second was Don Winslow's Cool Breeze on the Underground. And I was luckier still that they both went on to be Edgar nominees for Best First Novel. So that was, I don't know.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll tell you later, Jeffrey.
Okay. I'm sure. Yeah, I hope you talked about me while I was talking. Okay.
Well, we did.
Like he's the guy who was talking about writing on paper to start with, longhand, and so technology came back to bite me in the butt just a moment ago. So
you pay the price.
Charlaine, what are you most proud of? And I have to say a personal situation. We talked at the Monterey VoucherCon one time. It was my first VoucherCon. We had a long conversation. I'm sure you don't remember, but you had just published the Shakespeare series, and I loved that series. And that's when I really fell in love with your work. What are you most proud of?
You know, this sounds really hubristic. I'm proud of a lot of things. I never expected to be where I am. I never expected to have this long or successful a career. And honestly, for a girl from Tunica, Mississippi, this is pretty awe-inspiring. I'm really proud that, what am I really proud of? I'm really proud that I tell the truth in my books as I see it. I'm proud that I don't write the same book over and over. I'm proud that I keep trying new things, because my biggest fight is keeping myself from being bored. And my whole career is an effort to keep myself from being bored with what I'm doing. And amazingly, that has kept my readers from being bored. So I guess that's it. And the friends I've made, oh my gosh, that is the best part of all, to meet someone that you esteem so highly for their work. And then you go back to your room and you think, I'm their peer. And everyone thinks, I'm their peer. It's just, it tickles me pink.
Jeffrey, before I get to you, I just want to remind our audience that we will be switching to audience Q&A in a few short minutes. Type up your questions in the comment section, and they will be, hopefully we'll get to all of them. Jeffrey, what are you most proud of in your career?
A question, I mean, I think we've all done many of these. A question I don't think I've ever been asked before, and it's a wonderful one. And I think, I'm a big writer and rewriter and so forth and planner ahead. I'm an outliner, I'm not a pantser. And to answer that properly, can I take a week and get back to everybody on it? I guess no. Here's what I'd say, just off the cuff, and I would have to, do footnotes at some point later. But my goal in writing is to write for my readers. They are the gods to me. And I think I can honestly say that every of the 80 short stories I've written, the roughly 45 novels, and other things along the way, radio plays and stuff like that, everything I have written is not in regard to whether it gave me pleasure to write it, or it was something that I thought was good for me. I thought it was what was good for my audience, and they would smile, they would laugh. I have always happy endings. Short stories, not so much, but the novels all have happy endings. And that somebody finished that book with a deep breath, a sigh of, oh my God, I survived that book, and a smile on their face.
And they got back into a taxi.
And to keep people out of taxis.
Aside from books, what do each of you do for fun? Reagan, let's start with you.
I play tennis when my elbow allows it. Now that it's starting to get nice out, I'm returning to my garden. I think those are two of my main interests. I walk my dog a lot, which means I now am part of Podcast Nation, and I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Charlaine, what do you do for fun?
Gosh, fun. My husband says I buy things. That's pretty much the truth.
Okay.
We have 2 rescue dogs. I enjoy them immensely. And the older I get, the more I find myself talking to them as if they were people. Luckily, I don't expect them to respond, but it's really me talking to myself, but I just aim it at them. I have 2 grandchildren. They're fantastic children, and I think very highly of them and their parents. And I have 2 other adult children, and I spend a lot of time thinking about them. Probably too much. There's some very good television on now, and I do not scorn television in any way. It's really redeemed itself these past few years with some very interesting programming, and I watched that, and I really like documentaries. I watch a lot of documentaries. I'm very interested in archaeology. I know that's weird, but I am. And I'm a dinosaur freak. So there you have it, me in a nutshell.
And Jeffrey, what do you do for fun?
Well, I have two main, of course, I love television too, and I've been trying to figure out how to watch the Hemingway documentary, but it's a certain type of HBO that I don't seem to have access to, but I will work it out one way or the other. I think it's Ken Burns' show, and I understand it's quite good. Two main things: I breed and show dogs. I do the Westminster dog show route. That's called confirmation dog showing. We breed and show Briards. That's a French herding dog.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be going to Westminster this year. They moved it from Madison Square Garden to Lyndhurst, New York. That's one thing that occupies my time. But mostly, I think, because I sit in a dark room, as most writers do for a long time, and write, and we go a little stir crazy. I like to cook. It's a hobby of mine, and I like to have dinner parties. I used to do that once a week, and I hope we'll be getting back to that in the near future. So and if you've been sitting on your rear end for a long time, nothing like getting up there and you're frustrated because of writer's block or the characters just aren't behaving, and taking a sharp knife and cutting things up. It just is an exhilarating experience. Right, Charlaine? Yes, exactly.
I like to cook too.
We all have dogs. I have two rescues, so I love this. And I think Shane is back with us with our readers' questions.
Yeah. Well, first off, Reagan or Oline, I want to turn that question back over to you. What do you do for fun?
Well, okay, my dogs. I love my husband. He is a theater critic. And before this, we would go to live theater in South Florida, which has, believe it or not, has some excellent theater down here. And that, of course, reading, friends, just getting together with people, and watching television. I do love television. I do not belittle it at all.
Reagan, Billiken Racer wants to know what podcast specifically you really enjoy.
Oh, glad you asked. There are a few. I really love Patrick Radden Keefe's crazy, he wrote Say Nothing, which I highly recommend. And just today, his book about the Black Boys is out, which I haven't read yet. Can't wait to read it. But he did this insane podcast about this song by Scorpion in the 80s. Now, this is a terrible answer. But anyway, so I'm looking it up as I speak. It was a heavy metal song that was a huge hit, and there's a whole conspiracy theory that it was actually written by the CIA in order to infiltrate, break down bring the West into the communist Eastern Europe. And so he and I think a friend investigated, and it's a whole podcast about that. Wind of Change, which was the name of the song. I'll bet a lot of you know it. So that is my top tip for you.
Does anyone listen to True Crime and Cocktails?
That'll go on. I'm a big podcast person too. That's my daily walk. I get, it's a wimpy walk, a half mile or 3/4, but usually NPR podcasts. But there's just so many. Pantsuit Politics is a good one. Brian Lehrer, of course, is fantastic.
Yeah.
So specifically, Jeff, is it a possibility, this is from Renee, asking you to come to Connecticut somewhere down the line?
Hello, Renee. And yes, I would love to come to Connecticut. I used to live in, it was near Danbury a long time ago. Richfield was the town. That was a long time ago. I love Connecticut. And yes, I would love to. And as we get back to normalcy, again, later in the year, I'm starting to do some live events. So that will be in the future. Nothing like meeting fans. I'm sure Charlaine will agree with me too. Nothing like meeting fans in person.
Question for all of you, including you, Oline, so be thinking. Who is a current author whose new releases you always look forward to reading as soon as possible? Like just like the pub day you are in line to buy?
I could name 10 people. I am a huge reader. That is my main pastime. I probably read 5 books a week, sometimes more. I'm a huge fan of Daniel O'Malley's. I love Ann Bishop, Patricia Briggs, Robert Craze, Jeffery Deaver. There are just so many excellent writers that I could, when the book comes, I'm like, yay, it's here. And I get all excited and I clear the decks. I'm going, I'm reading this baby tonight. It's just like a date.
I would have to say, I'm not sure about the adjective new there, but anytime Michael Connelly hits the decks, I'm there immediately. I would have answered that with John le Carré, who's sadly passed away, but probably my favorite thriller writer of all time. And Daniel Palmer, I like. A fellow named John Gilstrap, a writer out of Virginia, as soon as one of his comes out. And I just read Girl A by Abigail Dean, and that is an utterly compelling book. But I unfortunately I don't read as much writing so much. I do a lot of research. And so I read a lot of nonfiction, but that's not, latest advances in blood spatter technique is not the stuff that one would want to necessarily share as to put on your next to read list. And I do read a lot of that kind of stuff.
Oh, Johnny Shaw. He is so good. Oh my gosh, he's so good. I was sitting next to a guy on the panel, and I don't know about you, but I don't always know all the people I'm on the panel with now that I'm so old. And I leaned forward to read his name placard, and it was Johnny Shaw. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm so glad to meet you.
What about you, Reagan?
Oh, I was mad at Jeffrey for stealing my Michael Connelly answer.
We can have him as well. We can share Michael, okay?
So he's one. There's almost too many to name, but and I published Mike Connelly, but I have to clarify that I never personally edited him. That's been Ossie Muchnick for many years, but so I'm a pure fan. George Pelicanos is one who I will, even if I didn't know him and edit him, I would sign up to be sure I got the first one out. Bill Beverly is someone whose first book I really loved, and I'm eager to read more of him. But so I'm those are a few. Laura Lippman, Alafair Burke. I don't know. There's so many. It's a tough question.
I want to steal what they both said.
Which one?
I just say I want to steal what they both said. I agree with you on everything. I know it just didn't occur to me.
I don't have the luxury or the time to stop everything and jump on a book that's coming out in July, even though I may want to, because I have to read as the books are going to be published so that my reviews come out within just a few weeks or even the week of the publication. But there are authors, and I have to admit this, I look so forward to their next book. And yes, Michael Connelly, Laura Lippman, Megan Abbott, Allison Galen. I just was writing some down. Angie Kim, Jennifer Hillier, I think is how you pronounce it, and S.A. Cosby. His real name is Sean Cosby. And Blacktop Wasteland. Yes, and then Razor. I'm sorry. What is it? It's Razor.
Razorblade Tears.
It comes out in July. So many books, so little time. That comes out in July, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I'm not going to be able to read that for another 3 or 4 weeks because I've got so many other reviews coming up. So, I look forward to authors too.
Yeah, this is on the top of my list because it is. Blacktop Wasteland was so fantastic.
Oh my God.
And I have to add, since the question was to all, Lori Rader Day, who I hope is watching tonight, who is another Edgar nominee. Laura McHugh, who is another, she's from Missouri and lives in Columbia now. So Jeffrey and
Oh,
Oline,
yes, I
you?
like her too. Yeah, I do
Yeah.
like her. Yeah.
Yep. So those are a few of mine that I absolutely adore and have to read as soon as they come out.
And Rachel Housewell Hall, or is it?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Do I
How's
have
it?
the name? Yeah. I'm
How's
sorry,
it?
it's just blanking, but she is terrific. And so many good books, so little time. And I have to read Jeffrey's because he's coming to South Florida in a few weeks virtually. So
From Eileen, taking it back to the beginning of your reading careers, what mystery book series authors were the first ones that interested you in the genre?
Ooh.
I'll just jump in very quickly with the James Bond books. And I will say this, for those people in the audience who may not have read Ian Fleming, the movies are in an entirely different universe. Bond in the books was noir, gritty. He was plagued with depression and angst over the fact that he had found himself in a profession at which he was very good. Yet it involved killing people, which he didn't always do. He was a very complex character. I didn't come to appreciate that until later. And when I read them in my late, 8, 9, and 10, I didn't quite appreciate that. But when I went back and reread them, they held up quite well. So I would say Fleming, hands down.
I read a lot of Del Shannon. I don't know that she's read much anymore.
Yeah.
E.S. Ferrers was one of my favorites. And I read the James Bond books also when my parents couldn't see me do it. And oh my gosh, so many again. Oh, the Archie Goodwin Newer Wolf books.
Sure.
Those were, I didn't really understand that world, but I thought it was fascinating.
And I was all about Agatha Christie, first off. Like on every family trip, I was allowed to buy one new paperback, one Agatha Christie paperback. So I just was devoted to her. And then at some point, Dorothy L. Sayers, and I remember have his I read it as car case. I didn't understand the title at all because I didn't understand what the word was. I like you, Jeffrey. I was allowed to read whatever I wanted, but I was often too young to really know what I was reading. But anyway, Dorothy L. Sayers just totally captivated me, and I think set me on a bit of an Anglophiliac direction for a long time, which I proudly still am on to some degree.
My mother had this great collection of hardcovers that she had read when she was a young woman. You know, the ones that were like 29 cents and something like that. So to this day, I've never read Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys. I started with Mary Reinhardt, with Agatha Christie, Rex Stout. And also, when I was about 12, I grew up in Charleston, Missouri. My mama let me off at the library while she went to do grocery shopping or whatever. And I wanted to check out one of the Ian Fleming books, James Bond books. The librarian was very upset, had to call my mother, which was not easy because we didn't have a phone. And she was out at the grocery store, and to see if that was going to be okay. And my mom said yes.
Yay, Mom.
Yes.
Question from Fedora, who is the president of our local chapter of Sisters in Crime. According to the Hemingway biodoc, which someone earlier said was on PBS, not on HBO, so that might be why you're having trouble finding it, Jeffrey. While in Key West, he worked all morning, played with the children, or went fishing in the afternoon, and got drunk at night. And Fedora is asking, is that Jeffrey's formula for success?
Could you say that again, Sean? I missed the question. I'm sorry.
So while in Key West, Hemingway worked all morning, played with the children, or went fishing in the afternoon, and got drunk at night. And is asking, the question is that your formula for success?
Well, I think it was Hemingway who said, write drunk but edit sober. And I can attest that there may be something to that, although the drunkenness part I don't think really advances everybody. I would my only response to that is I don't mind a little wine occasionally. I get violently seasick, so fishing is never going to enter the picture at all.
All right, I think we might have time for a couple more questions. So let's do one from Ellen. Ellen is asking, what advice would you give to young writers working on their first novel?
Finish it. I say this almost everywhere I go because people ask me that question a lot. I've met so many people who wanted to be a writer because they want to start a book. They don't want to finish it. I think what makes a real writer is finishing the book. That's how you know you're going to have the stick-to-itiveness to do the work. You have to follow it all the way through.
I would say plan ahead of time what you want to write. Joyce Carol Oates, you can't write your first sentence until you know what the last sentence is. I'm paraphrasing. This is coming from an outliner. So plan it out ahead of time. Take your time. Don't try to rush it into print. And when that doesn't work, look to self-publishing. Stick to mainstream publishing. Remember, as Hemingway also said, there are no great writers, there are only great rewriters. So plan on working with that product over and over and over again. And finally, remember that rejection is not a brick wall, it's simply a speed bump.
Reagan, what about you? Oh, having never written a book, I don't dare presume, but I think that our two authors have just given excellent advice, especially about don't take rejection as the end.
So someone did see your dog in the background, Charlaine. So since all of you have dogs, they want names.
We have Abigail. That's Abigail behind me. She's behind me. She's mostly a corgi. And we have Colt, who is God knows what. Our daughter found Colt in the parking lot of her dorm back when she was in college. And so you see who has had him for the past 10 years, us. And Abigail we found at the pound. And we are very happy with both of them. They're wonderful.
Reagan, what are your dogs' names?
I just have one, and her name is Maggie.
What kind is she?
She's a giant dumb
It'll be our secret.
terrier mix of some sort from a rescue. She's perfect, of course, but that's what she is.
Oh, of course. What's the definition of the best dog in the world? The one you can live with. My dogs are, I have three with me. Mama dog is Passion, and her two children, Blush and Monty, half siblings. She had two boyfriends, let's put it that way. And so they're living with me now.
I have Dot. We've gotten her 2012. She was left in an apartment complex when the people moved out. They left her next to the broken table. She's a Yorkie Terrier mix. And we got in December Max, who is an 11-year-old Havanese. His owner is 89, had to go into a nursing home and was not able to take care of him anymore. So she turned him over to a rescue group. And my husband has him in the back, and I keep hearing him barking. He's like my little stalker. And he's very sweet.
And last question, since we are here to celebrate your award, congratulations. I am curious what you were doing how did you celebrate after you found out that you won the award?
I'm thinking.
How did you all find out? Like, was it email? Was it a phone call?
It was a phone call. It was a phone call and from Greg Heron. And he said, he left a message and he said, nothing's wrong. I just want to talk to you. And I said, I got it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was so excited.
Exactly the same for me. And his voice sounded a little tentative at first, but then he added, "Don't worry, but please call me back." So, and I was a former attorney on Wall Street, and I was kind of prepared. You kind of put your defenses up when you get a phone call in an official capacity. You don't know what's going on, but that was still COVID time, but that was a night of some celebration, and I know champagne was involved.
It's such a rush to get such a dear award. It's such a rush. You just think, oh, it was worth it. It was worth it after all.
Well, Charlaine, don't you think that, I was president of NWA for a couple of terms, so I was familiar with the Grandmaster Award, but to be invited into this, basically a panoply of the greatest names of all kind of writing, I feel like, what did Groucho Marx say? He wouldn't be a member of a club that would have him as a member. And I felt I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy, but I'm going to take it anyway.
Exactly. I looked at the list of names and I thought, and they asked me? But then I thought, yeah, I'll take that. I will take it. Exactly. Thank you.
Reagan, did you do anything fun to celebrate?
Oh gosh, no, it's the past year it's all a blur. But this was a definite highlight and very similar reactions. I think I never want to be on a panel with the two of you again because you always say what I wish I had said, and I just want to say ditto. But I had a very similar reaction in terms of who's received this award before me, including Robert Papin and Kate Stein and Otto Penzler and the Ruth Cavan I mentioned earlier. So I definitely have some inferiority complex issues that I'll work out separately. I won't make you sit through it, but I was certainly very happy.
When I got my Raven, we were actually just walking in the door bringing Dot home for our little dog. And I gotta say, I think about the Raven every day when I write a review because I'm so honored with getting that award. And I know the power that comes with the written critique and how I can never take that for granted. And I try not to be too full of myself.
Well said.
Well, I have to, I'm sorry, I know we're running out of time, but Oline, I do want to say, I'm so grateful for the reviews you write and the attention you give to the books. You're really an important voice, I think, for so many writers and readers. So I have this moment of appreciation, I want to say, which is that it's great to see you here and to be able to say that because we all think very highly of you on my side of the fence.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your reviews are always put in context of the writer's career. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you all and congratulate you all. Such a fantastic evening. I am so thrilled that you were all able to be here, that you all are winners of these fantastic awards. And I want to remind the audience that we have books available for sale, signed copies of Charlaine and Jeffrey's books available for sale, that I included links in the comments. And just thank you so much, audience, for being here and for helping me celebrate with these fantastic award winners.
Well, of course, thank you, Shane, and to Left Bank Books. Thank you for all you do for us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see you all.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.